So in today's mobility video, we're going to look at shoulder mobility, and specifically we're going to look at your ability to raise the arm up overhead without trying to create too much movement through your lower back or through the chest as well. So one of the great ways of testing shoulder mobility and overhead mobility is to use a wall as a bit of a support. Today I'm going to use a broom handle, but you could use a towel that you hold over the top, or any sort of tubing that you can use just as a bit of a teaching aid really. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself into like a quarter squat position. So I'm just getting that quarter squat, but I'm going to focus on pushing my hips and my shoulders up against the wall. So hips and shoulders are always in contact with the wall. We're using that as a coaching tool, okay? Overhand grip, hands just outside shoulder width. And then from here, keeping your arms nice and straight, you're going to draw up and overhead. And then see if you can get both hands towards the wall behind you without your lower back or your hips trying to tilt away from the wall, okay? So as I start to go into this movement here, I can keep my hips and my shoulders pinned up against the wall, and I can get both hands towards the wall without my hips trying to glide away. So my shoulder mobility is okay, but if it's limited, the three things that I would be working on are, first of all, trying to use a foam roller to release off a muscle that we're calling your latissimus dorsi, or your lats. So they connect in from this portion of the arm here, they swing all the way down into your hips at the bottom as well. So if there's tightness through that area, that's going to have a huge role on limiting your ability to get up overhead. So we're going to take the foam roller down onto the floor first of all, and the area that we want to try and roll is on the outside and on the back of that shoulder blade area. So when you come down into the roller, lay it down onto your side, you're going to have the roller just underneath your armpit to start off with, and your arm reaching up in front of you. Now obviously we don't want to go onto the rib cage, so we've just got to tilt the body backwards slightly, and that should put you on the outside edge of your shoulder blade. So from here, using your feet on the floor for a bit of support, we're just going to draw up, and again just tilting backwards slightly to avoid the rib cage, but we're using that foam roller as a bit of an assessment tool, okay? So I can feel a little bit of tightness in this particular area. With that in mind, I'm going to keep the pressure on that point, so we're going to use a trigger point release where we find the trigger point or the tightness, we keep the pressure on it for around 30 seconds, just let your breathing just relax so that you can feel the muscles relax into the roller. And after you've held it for around 30 seconds, again, we're just going to use that roller just to have a roll, again, around the back of that shoulder blade area, specifically to start off with. And again, find the trigger point, keep the pressure on it, let yourself relax into the roller, give it around 30 seconds or until you feel the muscle release, and then do the same on the other side as well. So that's the first step in trying to release off the muscles that are going to influence your ability to raise the arms up overhead. From here, there's a couple of mobility drills that are going to be really helpful as well. They are based on the floor, so you go laying onto your back on the floor. And then from here, what we want to try and do is just work on your shoulder mobility to start off with. So when you're laying on your back, we're going to have the elbows out to the side at 90 degrees. We're going to have the forearms reaching up like this. And then we're just working on what we call external rotation. So the shoulder joint is externally rotating, bringing the arm down towards the floor, both times, or both sides at the same time. And just letting the weight of the arm create the movement here. Now the one thing to watch on this one, and quite often what we see is, if you're struggling to get the mobility, most people will then try and use the wrist to try and hit the floor. So it's really important that you keep a straight line through your forearm, through your wrist, and just focus on opening up through the shoulder and the rotation coming from that shoulder joint. And then the final drill, which can be done either on the floor or up against the wall, is what we call shoulder glides this time. So I'm going to show you a version where we sit up against the wall. So we're using the wall as a bit of a support or training tool basically. Knees bent slightly. I'm going to push my back and my shoulders up against the wall. I'm going to try and bring my hands back up against the wall like this. Now if you're tight through the chest or the lats, you might find that you're a bit more like this to start off with. So again, you can do some rotations first of all, and then the goal is to try and work on sliding the arms up the wall, and drawing them back down. So it's keeping contact with the wall and drawing back down. Really trying to stretch up and reach at the top and then control it back down to the bottom. For these two drills, you probably do maybe 15 repetitions on the rotations and 15 repetitions on the glides. But this one can also be done laying on your back on the floor. So from here, trying to really open up the chest and work on that ability to then raise your arms up overhead. It's probably a good idea after you've done all those releases to retest the up overhead test that we did at the start to see if you've got any improvement. Repeating this a couple of times a day is going to be very helpful and improving your shoulder mobility.